Welcome to Logistics Unplugged. My name is Brian Blaylock, and I'm your host, and I'm happy to jump in today to all things logistics. So let's pull back the curtain, take a look under the hood, and have a great discussion. So I've got two friends with me here today. I've got Tyler Cooper, the Director of Risk Management for Blue Grace. Tyler, thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome. And Phil Lamb, my fellow Blue Gracer, spent a lot of time with Philip dealing with issues. And Philip, I'm so happy to have you here with me doing the broadcast today.
I appreciate it, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, listen, today's topic is about risk, right? Risk and claims and how it affects this world that we all work in. And I'm going to let each of you give a few different perspectives on that. But before we do, I want to give everybody a little bit of perspective on you. So we're going to start off with sort of how you wound up in the industry, get a little bit of if we're going to do the behind the curtain, we got to get you behind the curtain, right? So,
Yeah.
So Tyler, I'm going to put you behind the curtain first.
All
and
right.
Talk to me a little bit about how you got into the industry, how you got here. Is this what you want to do when you grow up, Tyler? Or is this?
Absolutely not. No.
I don't know that I've gotten a yes on that one yet, Milvia. Talk to me. Tell me about it, Tyler. Give me the journey.
Yeah. So I learned about logistics when I was 20, right? I was in going to a local college campus and was funding myself through college and ran out of money. I had some buddies that worked at Coyote Logistics, and they're like, "Hey, come over here, man. Come learn this world." And it's like, what is logistics? You know, everybody knows UPS and FedEx,
Right,
and
sure.
so that's kind of what they just told me. And I got into the tracking and tracing back in 2012 and quickly realized that it is a non-forgiving workload in logistics. You are working 24/7, but somehow that determination just kept me going, man, and found my way into compliance in 2013. And from there, I just haven't looked back.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Pretty straightforward road there, Tyler.
Yeah.
Phil, let's see if you had any bumps on the road. Let's
Phil's got a lot more
Let's see how
experience here.
Philip got from the wherever there is to where we're at now.
Well, Brian, I started my career in restaurant management. And
Of course.
Yep. Well, and then I decided to move, and for 4 years I was managing an art gallery. Selling
Wow.
art. Yeah. Realized that sales is not my vocation. So a friend of mine approached me and asked me if I wanted to come into join a company called JP Food Service as a logistics coordinator. And I said, sure, let me try it. And my career advanced, and I actually fell in love with it. And been doing it ever since, and that's I started in 1989.
Very nice. And we all enjoy a little of the control chaos that we get in this industry, right?
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
With the emphasis every now and then
Every
on a
now
little
and
more
then, yeah.
control, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we know a little bit about where you came from. Philip, I'm not sure if we've talked about that art part of it before. We may have to have a discussion about that
No problem. Be
at some
happy to.
point.
Yeah.
Because clearly I'm artistic, as you can, or something related to that, right? No. So I'm going to take a few of these questions to kind of help the listeners today, and I'm going to maybe split them up a bit between you, but feel free as I start with one of you gentlemen for the other to jump in if you got something extra you want to add to it at the end. But I have a few questions I want to get to, and then let's just let the conversation go. I want to talk about how risk and compliance fit into the day-to-day operations. And Tyler, I'm going to start with you on that. I'm going to lean into you a lot when we're on the risk side of it. And
Okay.
Philip, I'm going to lean into you a lot when we're on the claim side of it.
Okay, no problem.
So Tyler, start us off. Tell me about the day-to-day compliance issues in freight operations.
Yeah, man. So, as a truckload brokerage, we assume a lot of liability on behalf of customers. So that day-to-day starts off right there. But, kind of how my day looks is, we onboard a carrier to handle a shipment, but that's not just exactly what we do. We also monitor the life of the load the whole way through the shipment, just in case there's any risks that pop up. We also follow it all the way until the delivery, until we receive paperwork. So what we're doing is it's involved in every aspect of logistics now. I'm sure you guys are aware of the increased fraud and theft that's happening in the industry.
Absolutely.
So every day we're trying to enhance our carrier vetting. We're trying to enhance the way that we can monitor these loads, just to make sure that the freight operations are not interrupted. The customer receives their freight on time. We want to select good quality carriers, right, that have had long-standing relationships in the industry, just so we know that they're a little bit more reliant. We also don't look the other way on a carrier that has new authority. We just try to find them, a more suitable freight until we build a good relationship with them so we can ensure that our customers are getting the quality that they need.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'm sure every new carrier had to start somewhere, right?
Exactly.
And growing with those carriers is kind of can be a good experience when you see them turn into one of your more trusted, successful partners.
Right.
I like that. And this does kind of bleed into Philip, what I wanted to talk to you about anyway, which is, and I know you in documentation and getting in front of things correctly, but there's more to it than that. Talk about what the shippers can do on their side when we talk about how we avoid claims and avoid these disruptions that happen to supply chains in the first place. So,
well, yeah,
prepare us.
Yeah, from a shipper standpoint, they need to. Their focus has to be on dotting I's and crossing their T's, and by that I mean, let's take a look at our packaging. Let's take a look at how we're going to load our product, what carrier's picking up, and what we need them to do for us. And there's a lot that goes into that. Whether if it's truckload, there's certain things that they should set themselves up to do. If it's LTL, there's other things that they should set themselves up to do. So you want them to be proactive in regards to everything they're doing, and the more proactive they are, the better their chances are of getting their goods to the right place in the right way. Damages are going to occur. That is just part of our industry. But if you're making sure that you're doing your packaging correctly, you're doing your palletization correctly, you're making sure your guys that are loading your trucks are doing it correctly, you're making sure that the drivers are on the dock looking at everything, and if they have a concern, that they broach that with the gentlemen that are loading it. And from an LTL perspective, again, you're making sure your packaging's correct, you're making sure that you have all your information correct, you're making sure that the guy that's picking it up is doing right by what you need them to do and how you need them to focus for your product.
It's great, Philip. And I know you said to me before that you wish you could work yourself out of a job. And that's exactly the right attitude for putting things in place up front. That the best way to deal with claims is to not have them, right?
Correct.
To get everything done you can on the front end. Mm-hmm. So, Tyler, I'm going to swing back over to your direction a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about tools in process that can be used. And when we do these, we know that some of these people may be partners to Blue Grace, but for the majority of them, they're just people that have freight and they're at risk like everyone else. So talk to me about some of the tools that can be used, some of the ways that we can go about getting in front of proper compliance in the industry.
Absolutely, yeah. So nowadays versus 10 years ago, there's a lot more tools that are accessible for all parties in logistics, right? So part of the tool would be partnering with a third party that allows you to have some more robust carrier vetting, right? Mm-hmm. Something that we do, we partner with Highway. We use Highway for our carrier vetting platform, but not only that, they also help monitor our insurance certificates for carriers. They also help the onboarding process, and our onboarding packet is in Highway. So partnering with a third party when you don't have those resources yourself is definitely instrumental. Everybody relies on the FMCSA to dictate, carriers and carrier safety, but that's not always going to happen, right? The FMCSA has their hands full with all of the carriers in the industry today. They don't have the manpower to monitor it successfully, and therefore that's where the liability shifts on the shipper, the customer, the receiver, the broker to kind of fill that void, right? So my opinion would be, find something that suits your business operations, find some tool that can help to make your business more successful. If that is reaching out to a broker who has those capabilities, reach out to a broker. If you don't have that, monetary asset to do that, then I would suggest reaching out to a third party that also specializes in that.
Okay, so whether it be a 3PL to manage the entire freight and take care of that process for you,
exactly,
or a company in itself that manages risk and deals with that. So get some help, I think, is the very straightforward answer to that. Get a little bit of help, because it's not always easy. And I'm assuming that most companies, especially smaller growing companies, manufacturers or wholesalers, distributors, you can't invest payroll resources in every possible thing that can happen in this part of the world. They have to be good at what they do, right? When they build their widgets, they have to make sure that they're good at that. And you got to get somebody that can help you be good at making sure that thing can get from point A to point B, reduce the risk of that, and keep yourself in compliance.
Right. Yeah. I would say the biggest tool is information and data, right? You have more information on something, you have more data on something, you're able to provide a better opinion on the matter, right?
Absolutely. And Phil, I know you talk about not just the documentation and the paperwork of doing things correctly, but you talk about the freight itself, and you talked a little bit in your first commentary about that. But you can talk about expense of packaging things correctly if you want, but there's an awful lot of expense in not doing that too, right?
There is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Penny wise and a pound foolish.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, from my standpoint, for customers, use us as a tool. Use us as a sounding board. We have information that we can present to you. We have companies that we can bring in that allow, as an example, packaging companies that can come in, help with packaging. Companies that can come in and help with palletization, et cetera. All of these tools that are out there, and there's new companies that are broaching themselves and coming out and reaching out to us and saying, hey, we think we have a solution and we might be able to partner with them and help our customers as well. So to Tyler's point, education's key, and learning everything you can about what's going on and using resources there to help you.
Yep.
That's there are many, many resources. You and I have had a conversation before on this, and I mean this sincerely. I could probably make a career out of teaching people how to properly sign for product coming inbound into their facilities. And it seems like it should be very easy and something that would be intuitive, but it's not. And that's a huge risk for a shipper and a receiver.
You know what? That's a great road you just went down, and I'm going to audible a little bit here. I know I gave you guys a little bit of a cheat sheet on some of the stuff I want to talk about, but as you mentioned that, let's give that 101 lesson right now. Let's talk about what's important when you're receiving freight. How do you make sure that you're doing what you need to do to protect what a claim would look like, what risk would look like when you are receiving that freight?
So, in a nutshell, you want to take photographs of the goods, first on the trailer, second on your dock. Then you want to inspect everything that's there, and you want to succinctly write what you found on the DR or the POD or the BOL. And you want it to be, you don't need to write War and Peace, you just want it to be succinct and what's going on. One of the worst notations I've seen, and it happens all the time, subject to inspection. No, freight is to be inspected when it's delivered.
Right.
Subject to inspection, you just gave that carrier, especially on the LTL world, a get out of jail free card.
Right.
Period.
Great tip.
So, yeah.
Great tip. And we also know that there are good intentions in freight, and every now and then there's bad actors in freight, as there are, listeners, believe me, as there are in every industry of any kind. So I'm gonna have you dig in your bag of tricks a little bit for me, Phil, and I'm gonna have you talk about freight gone wrong. And if I know you got to have a good story in there somewhere.
I got a good story for you.
All right.
This is an old one, but it's still a great story. I was with a company, and we were moving freight out of Chicago going into Baltimore, Maryland, and it was high dollar meat. Truck would pick up on a Friday, deliver on a Monday, and repeatedly, week after week after week, we were finding items missing out of the truck, and we, for the life of us, couldn't figure it out. The truck was loaded, truck was sealed. We had pictures of that. Truck arrived on Monday, no issues, and the product was missing. The gentleman I worked for at the time had the great idea. He hired a private eye. He had the private eye follow the carrier. Turns out the carrier, on his way from Chicago to Baltimore, stopped at his farm, and he had a huge barn, and he drove into his barn, and he had buddies there, and they took his reefer off, and he crawled in through the hole, grabbed himself some steaks, put the reefer back on, and off he went. And, so we finally settled that issue with this gentleman, and we agreed to part ways, but that's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
because it showed me a lot about people. The ingenuity.
Oh my word! Yeah, that is pretty creative, and I got to say that probably would have fallen right into our grilling season podcast, because this is a way to get good value and inexpensive steaks.
It was great. He was having a great time. He was sharing with everybody.
Unless you get caught, because I'm sure the value of that can get up past the felony level at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the level was quite high. So
all right, well, I'm gonna, now that we've found our steaks and we're ready to stick them on the grill, I'm gonna back up just a little bit, and I want you guys to think about that newer, smaller shipper, because I mean, sometimes help is for the people that really need it, right? Everybody that's been in business for 25 years and has robust processes throughout the organization, although Philip would argue that point with me about how prepared some of them are. But let's help the little guy a little bit. Let's help the little guy be not a little guy, and let's help them know the steps and things that they can do. And I know, Tyler, you talked about a little bit, get a partner, right? That seems like a logical thing. But I also want to know if I am somebody new to the industry or new to shipping, new to having a product line that's got to get out to my customers, I need to know what to hold them accountable to as well.
Right.
So whether it's me doing it or whether it's me making sure that they do it, right? Let's talk about, and I'm going to ask each of you to hit this a little bit. Give me 2 or 3 things to look out for if you're a new shipper or a smaller shipper trying to become a bigger one, trying to grow. Give me a few just basic housekeeping things that are a must for themselves to be accountable to or their partner to be accountable to reduce risk. And I'm going to let you start on the just pure risk side. And Philip, I want you to get a little bit more technical on the shipment itself and help me out with that. So Tyler, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you need to understand what's the product that you're shipping, right? Is there a risk while it's in transit? How far is it going? Because again, that adds more risk.
Sure.
I think first and foremost, again, they should also understand that the area where their shipping office or warehouse is located, based on what's happening in the U.S. today, there's a lot of theft.
Yes.
High theft in California, high theft in Texas, high theft in Illinois. Those are the top 3 states that we're seeing all this fraudulent activity. So understanding that would also help you understand that your company is going to be at risk for those commodities either being stolen at the warehouse or while it's being loaded on a truck or while it's in transit. So you better yourself with the information that you have available to you. There's a lot of resources online. You can find a lot of resources with the TIA if you're a member there. And if you're not, you can reach out to see if you can get a membership. They have a ton of information available for all aspects of logistics. I find myself using some AI tools as well. You know, there's information that I need to find easily accessible. I'll hit an AI tool, and then I also validate it. I don't just trust the computer every time.
Sure.
But, you know, that's a tool that's available for most people. There's some free AI bots that you guys can use to better your knowledge on the topic. Freight fraud and risk is very high in these days, right? So I would say make sure that you have proper insurance for your company that can help cover you in the event that you have theft. Make sure that you work with them because they will be a partner. They don't want to have claims filed.
Sure.
So they will provide you resources to help better your business, right? I worked at Stored for a little bit there, 4PL. They have a big warehouse distribution company, and we helped do that, right? We helped partner with their insurance agent while I was there. We basically, what's best practices, right? You guys have seen this more than we have. Stored was a fairly new company, and they want to work with you. So if you have a good insurance agent, utilize them, right? They're not just there to give you insurance. They can give you advice. They can provide you with reading material. They can also come to your facility and say, hey, make sure you have a lock on this door. Make sure you have a gate, stuff like that. So
that's a great tip. I didn't even think about it. The insurance company should be there to do more than just take your check and insure the loads, right? So it's a great tip. So now it's on you, Philip. You talk to me a little bit about how to be prepared with the freight when you are that small. And it's okay if you go down some of those same roads if you got some other perspectives to add on the insurance and claims.
Well, just from a shipper standpoint, if you're brand new to shipping, you should probably think about what you're shipping, how it's going to be packaged, and where it's going to go to, and who your end customer is. And ask questions. Ask questions, in the industry, to Tyler's point. There are people out there, even if you're going to a new shipper or a new customer, that customer may have somebody that they know that might be able to help you and educate you on things that they've seen in the past that'll help you as opposed to running through stumbling blocks on yourself that somebody else has already gone down. Look for a mentor, another company that's in the area that may not be the same as what you're shipping, but somebody that ships product and they might have some resources that you're totally unaware of. It all comes down to educating yourself and or, to Tyler's point, finding someone that can help you because you're not going to have all the answers. AI is a tool for a shipper. I'm not sure how AI would help them per se, but I do think that finding a mentor, especially in local business, join the local business groups that are out there. Look for other people that have already put themselves out. I know for a fact that people that own businesses will share their information
Sure.
if you just ask.
Absolutely. Yeah. The best way to get an answer is to ask the question, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And if you don't ask, you won't know.
Exactly.
There's 4 magic words that I've been teaching salespeople for years is, can you help me? Because very rarely is anyone just going to give you a flat out no. And if they do, that's probably not the right person to talk to. Mm-hmm. So I want to go down one more small road before I get into a couple of fun things toward the end here. But the question I have is when we talk about truckload and we talk about LTL or less than truckload for the listeners who are getting familiar with freight for the first time, I know that there's different limitations on how insurance can actually be provided for both. But when we talk about how class and carrier liability sort of relates to that on the LTL side, because we know that that's freight that's handled more frequently, so there's a good possibility for damage. So talk to me and let everybody understand a little bit, whichever one of you, Philip, I know I've had this conversation with you before, so if you want to attack it first, talk to the folks about what carrier liability really means, so they'll understand that.
So to make it as simple as I can possibly make it, carrier liability is the carrier saying, based on what you're going to ship, based on what class and how I'm going to, whatever price I give you, my liability is going to be at X amount. Liability is not insurance at all. Mm-hmm. And a carrier may come and say, as an example, I'm going to move class 100 and I'm going to move it at X dollars per pound. My liability will be Y. Mm-hmm. And you need to understand what that liability is. It may not cover the full amount of your shipment, and you need to be prepared for that. As an example, if you have a $100,000 shipment and the carrier's charging you, $100 to move a $100,000 shipment, there's a pretty good chance that their liability is going to be very, very low.
Sure.
So are they going to be able to cover $100,000? Probably not. So you may want to think about having insurance on that shipment.
Absolutely. Anything, Tyler, you want to add to that?
I would just say to Philip's point, specifically speaking to LTL and having worked on the warehouse side in my past, there are a lot of customers who are not aware of LTL rates and tariffs and the liability that they're capped at, right, per pound. Mm-hmm. And I think the typical, correct me if I'm wrong, Philip, it's typically 20 cents per pound is what we see. Is it less than that?
Less than that, yeah.
Which is when you have a product that's probably worth $250,000, but it's 100 pounds.
Yeah,
that's not going to cover.
Not getting a lot out of that, are you?
Right? So understand that. Try understanding that liability. Basically, to what Philip was just saying. That's very big in a customer's eyes because you're not going to get blindsided in the event that something happens. Right? You're not going to be like, oh my gosh, like what does that mean? So,
100%.
Which has happened in the past where customers figure that out and they're not aware of it because they haven't experienced it yet.
Yep.
Now, do you guys see incidents where it makes sense? It's one thing to use an insurance product that is intended to be shipment by shipment. Mm-hmm. We have experience with that. Mm-hmm. It's another thing to talk to your insurance company about additional insurance. Give me an idea strategically of what makes sense. Is it all the above? Is there a strategy that makes sense to insure on a more of a umbrella liability standpoint? That, or is it, or should you look at each individual shipment?
You want to go first, Philip?
Yeah, just real quick. You could use a combination of all of those, okay? But you need to really understand what your risk tolerance is, and that should dictate how you address which one you take. You may be a company large enough to be able to afford a very large umbrella policy to cover yourself. And if you do, great. But if you're not a big company and you don't have those deep pockets, maybe that case by case where you're insuring each single load.
Sure.
You may be paying a certain amount. Yes, you are. But if something were to happen, and if the insurance is correctly set up and done, you should be covered.
Right.
If you just rely on the carrier's liability from an LTL perspective, you may not be covered at all, or you may be cents on the dollar.
Sure.
Right.
No, that makes perfect sense. Tyler, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely what he was saying. There's the case-by-case, the shipper's interest policy, and it may fit your business model. But again, to what Philip's point is understand your risk, understand your portfolio what are we shipping? And to his point, are we large enough to just absorb that risk? And if so, then maybe you want to you weigh it differently. But if you're a smaller entity and maybe you can't afford the robust coverage, look at individualized shipper's interest policies where you can cover that load in the event something goes wrong. And then maybe the carrier's insurance denies the coverage. At least you have a backup in place that protects your asset, right? You're shipping your assets, and you want to make sure that they are covered in transit.
Yeah, and it's such a good point. And when you think about recovering freight costs with your customers, it's just important to think about what all those costs are. Right. So you are either thinking about all of those grand big losses that you could have and thinking about that as part of your actual cost for delivering your goods, or you can think about the cost of individually insuring that shipment.
Exactly.
Right.
It's a matter of when, it's not a matter of if in this industry.
And and please understand that not everything may be covered.
Right.
Right.
And from a truckload standpoint, there's a chance. There's always a chance that a carrier's insurance has a get out of jail free card where they have exclusions, and you need to be aware of those exclusions.
Right. And is there a place that those are either published or is that
ask.
knowable information?
You have to ask. You have to ask.
That's the unfortunate part, right?
Yeah.
Is you obtain a certificate of insurance on a carrier, but that's all you get. It's just the policy information.
Right.
You're not getting the nitty gritty of what they're excluded. So you have to ask. You have to feel it out, right? And if it's a smaller carrier, you understand maybe they don't have those robust exclusions, or they have a lot of exclusions in place that won't cover that commodity. But a larger carrier typically has higher insurance, and they typically can cover a wider range of commodities under their insurance because they pay for it. But at the same time, that carrier's rates are also going to be a little bit higher than that other guy. So, people try to take the cheap way out, but when you do that, you may be hurting yourself in the long run.
Yep.
For sure. And you made a good point a minute ago, Philip, about your risk tolerance, right?
Yep.
If you know that balancing the cost of delivering my goods and being profitable, and there's enough volume of freight. So when that does happen, I was better served by not overspending to prevent it from happening once, right? So you do have to balance that out, and those are great tips, great advice. I learned a lot today. We're going to let everybody chew on that and absorb it, but I do have a few parting questions before you go. And we've done this with pretty much most or all of our guests, and it's the industry that we're in, so it's important that you have one of these, guys. I need to know your number one trucking song. Tyler, I'm going to start with you, my friend, and we set the bar high around here because we've had a lot of answers.
Yeah. I'm probably going to catch a lot of flack for this, and I won't let my wife listen to this podcast just because of this answer, but it's going to be Super Bass by Nicki Minaj. I don't think you've had that answer before.
We have absolutely not had that answer before. And that was completely unexpected, so I like that.
I'm a guy who likes a lot of beats, right?
Okay.
So, as I'm traveling down the road.
So that's your driving song.
Yes.
Is what that is.
There
okay.
we go, yeah.
All right. We're putting Tyler behind the wheel because his wife's going to send him on the road packing if she hears this anyway. So I like it.
Too late, she's heard it.
Oh, man. I was emailing it to her live as we were saying that, but no.
I may have sang it once or twice at karaoke as well. So
I love it. That's fantastic. All right, Philip.
I'm gonna go old school, I've liked this song ever since it's come out from a trucking standpoint, and that's Convoy.
Can't beat it.
Yep.
Great movie, great song.
Yep, absolutely.
Great rap. So we were all about that bass, and now we're in a convoy, and we're going to truck our way on out of here. So, folks, that is a wrap. Had a great time with you guys today.
I appreciate it, Brian. Thank you so much.
Thanks.